Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. We've got a stock that might be doing close to a 10x today. We'll have that for you right after this. Bang! Great to be back with you. What do you say, Pete?
Well, there's no clapper, but I know that the man who's always on a mission and flying somewhere, he is in an airport, he's flying somewhere. The 10X conference. So that's going to be great. Looking forward to that.
10X. He is Pete Najarian. I'm Jon Najarian. We're delighted that we'll be on stage with the one and only Grant Cardone on Thursday, the 4th of April. The conference kicks off tomorrow, the 2nd, and 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We'll only be able to tell you some of the folks as they are revealed because it's top secret. But there's a lot of really interesting celebrities and people from business and finance that Grant has got for this conference. Over 41,000 people signed up, Pete.
God, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing what they do, all of them.
Yep. Well, so we're looking forward to seeing you guys and Grant, Jared, Elena, everybody at the 10X Growth Con. Let's kick it off today, Pete, with the macro minute and talk about, well, we've got ISM coming up. Okay, so that's manufacturing. We've got PMI. Okay, purchasing managers. That's interesting also. JOLTS. And then we've got ADP. And at the end of the week, we've got the BLS, which will be March jobs. That's a lot of data coming our way this week, Pete.
And we feast on data. We always look for that. It's obviously something very important to us, especially because of the fact that the Fed has become such a central thing that we watch more now than ever before, in my opinion anyway. And we had PCE on Friday. You looked at those numbers, immediately you say, well, looks like we're going to pause. And then you look over at the CME and it's 93%. Yeah, we're going to pause. Not shocking to you, John, not shocking to me. But for the people who are shocked, hey, wake up, man. This is where we are, and you have to understand that. And there will be cuts. They just won't happen when people thought they were going to happen, and probably not as many as folks were expecting.
We are anxiously awaiting those cuts, Pete, but it's still, we're hoping it'll be by the sometime in the second quarter, but it still might be the third instead. We'll have to see. All right, let's talk about the futures, Pete, with fantastic
futures.
There he goes.
Fantastic futures, Pete. I'm going to say today it's got to be gold setting a new all-time high. It's set multiple all-time highs, but it's doing it sort of like Alexiev used to do when he lifted weights, Pete. He's doing it by like a quarter of a pound or half a pound each time he broke the record. You remember?
Yeah.
Well, that's what gold's doing. It's not exactly like exploding hundreds of dollars higher. It's going up and it's $15 higher or it's $10 higher. Nonetheless, it's still a record.
And I'm right there with you, John. I think it's important because it's the safe haven. Everybody's always viewed it as the safe haven. People apparently are doing that once again. And it is up. It's at all-time highs, to your point. And even though it doesn't sound like a lot, it's a fairly big number. This is up about 10% year to date. So a pretty good run a great run from gold. And I think it's pretty impressive. It also tells you a little something about people where they feel like they want their money, because if they're going to the safe haven, that takes a little bit away from some of that risk out there as well.
Yeah. And believe it or not, that is one of the things that Powell and the FOMC would like to see. Is not just a feverish buying frenzy that results in a broken dream. They would rather see people starting to, maneuver over towards some of the other assets other than just AI, artificial intelligence stocks, and so forth, maybe crypto stocks. Well, let's dive right into uranium stocks, Pete, because Cameco, CCJ, Goldman comes out today and says, you know what? We think people really need a lot more of what they make, which is uranium. And we've been talking about it for what, Pete? A little over a year and a half at least?
Yep. We have been. I think it's a good call. It's just a late call, right? I mean, we've watched the price of uranium, and we've watched, obviously, CCJ go from $25 to $45 in the last year. It's been a heck of a ride, John. And the entire ride, we have seen unusual option activity leading the way, giving us the pathway to go because they keep rolling up these calls. Very similar to something we've seen recently, at least in Citigroup for the last 6 or 8 months now, where they've done the same thing. Same trader, they're just rolling up and out and moving to the upside. Bottom left, upper right. I mean, Gartman was right. He was right all those years. And that's exactly what we're seeing out of CCJ. And it is a clean fuel, right? I mean, that's what a lot of people talk about is, well, there's a lot of concerns. Yeah, safety concerns and everything else. If you're smart about what you're doing, if you're doing it the right way, which we obviously, knock on wood, it's been going pretty well for many, many years now. But that is one of the issues that is in front of us. But then how is that any different than an oil spill, John? I mean, there's a lot of different things that happen in the energy space, and there are risks, but this one is a clean fuel.
Well, and a lot more of that is needed in Europe, Pete, because a lot of those plants that would have been shut down are not being shut down now because the war in Ukraine, the sanctions against Russia, the cutoff of natural gas pipeline from Russia and so forth. So those all play into alternatives for energy production. And obviously, like Pete said, the cleanest one that we have. You love wind, you love solar, but they're not as consistent as they need to be to fulfill all the needs over in anywhere, not just Europe. All right, Pete, let's talk about NVEI, because this is a Canadian payments processing company, and apparently Advent, which is a private equity firm, is making a run at them. And for that reason, look at that chart that Jared just put up there. That's from our Rebel Research. That shows you the pretty dramatic move that we've seen over the last little bit for NVEI. And I think this one, perhaps, Pete, is going to indeed be taken private by Advent.
And John, speaking of Canada, how about Ryan Reynolds? This is another name that he's involved with. Is the guy just hitting home runs after home runs after home runs? I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Not only is the guy a good-looking guy and a funny guy, and he's always, dating or married to beautiful women. I mean, it's really a tough life that he's leading. All that being said, John, I think it's pretty interesting because if it is a takeover, and it sure has the smell of one, and it's been around for a while now, but their 52-week high is 42, so they're still well off of that. So as it's positioning a little bit further to the upside, I guess what you'd have to wonder is, at what level will this get bought out? Is it already built in right now? By the way, 23 million shares, not 23 million shares. The free cash flow is 235 million. I apologize about that. So no problem. This is a company that's doing a lot of things right, John.
Yeah, and like you said, Ryan Reynolds, what a brilliant investor, not just great actor and all around, seems like a pretty good guy. Yeah. But Aviation Gin, Pete, Mint Mobile, and now Wealth Simple. I mean, the guy's got it all going on, and doesn't hurt being married to Blake Lively either.
Seems like a good thing.
Seems like a good thing. All right, let's talk about Iron, IRON. This one, it's the name of the company is Disc Medicine, and they dropped 59%. Why? They had a great result, Pete, in their tests. Apparently it worked really well, this sunlight sensitivity study. But the placebo, which means basically a sugar pill, worked just as well for the patients that they gave the sugar pill to as the other one. So that's kind of a head scratcher. Maybe we need more sugar pills, Pete, but obviously not good news for Disc Medicine.
And it really is a shame because this is something that's a very unique thing they're trying to help people out with, and they thought the results were going to be great. They were great. But like to your point, John, then all of a sudden you look at the placebo and you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe the placebo, geez, they spend all this money to get this thing to this level, and the placebo, maybe it's up in people's head, whatever it is. But interesting for sure. Stock actually has been as high as 77. Today, John, it got all the way down towards 27. The 52-week low is 20. It is getting hammered. It was down 60%. Now it's about 50, 55%. I'm sure it'll fluctuate throughout the day, but certainly not the news that they were looking for, especially when it started off so good, but then the placebo kind of, that kind of was something in the punch bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, something that you don't want to see in a punch bowl. Well, let's talk, Pete, just for a sec about what's going on with CleanSpark, CLSK. Now, these guys, of course, are a miner. That means they get paid in crypto for proving out a formula that basically is that ledger that we talk about all the time, that distributed ledger. Well, so all these miners that do that get rewards of Bitcoin. In the case of if they're mining Bitcoin, they get a Bitcoin reward. In other digital assets, they get that. Well, this one, Pete, the stock was up 480% year over year. That's a pretty good run. Turns out that they reported 165% year over year increase in revenue. Obviously, very good. But just because your revenue nearly triples, going up from where it was to up another 165%, the stock's up 480. So it got way ahead of itself, apparently. And that's why I think we're seeing the stock trade down today.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, John. I mean, the numbers are extraordinary that they put up, and anybody would say, well, why is this stock down? I mean, everything they reported is great. Well, because a lot of this was already cooked in. And it's made this incredible run, and it's made this run along with the big run that we've seen over the last multiple months that we've seen out of Bitcoin. And it's been a rocket ship to the upside, but it's probably already all paid in there, John. So it's down 7% today. There are a lot of shorts in there, which is surprising because you'd think that they would have maybe covered some to some degree. Maybe they'll start doing that on this little bit of a pullback as well. But about 11 or 12% of it is on the shorts, and they've got a pretty good burn rate. So there are some concerns out there for the company, I would say, from that perspective. But this is also one that was just probably way too far in front of itself, even though these numbers are fantastic that they put up.
Yep. And that one is a tougher one to measure, Pete, I think, for a lot of folks on Wall Street. How big were their rewards? Did they beat out the likes of Hut 8 and a bunch of the folks, Riot Blockchain, a bunch of the other folks? Did they beat them out by that much? Well, it turns out they beat, but they didn't beat them out by as much as some of the optimists thought. Well, that's going to do it for us for stocks today, Pete. I'm going to let you take it over for some of the sports going forward while I jump on the plane down to the 10X GrowthCon. Bang.
Well, it's great to have you on, John, and it's I know you're in a hurry, so have a safe flight down there. Look forward to seeing you over there in Miami area. It'll be great. I'll tell you what, a lot of people, I mean, John talked about it just now, 41,000 people are signed up for this thing. It should be pretty amazing, actually, to see just exactly how this whole thing runs, because I'll tell you what, Grant Cardone and his crew, they are absolutely amazing. They're pros at what they do, and it's going to be something very, very exciting. We haven't been a part of this particular thing ever before, this GrowthCon, so we're looking forward to it. All right. Thanks a lot, John. So we've got the Timberwolves, and you see it down there. I think this is really interesting, and that's why I wanted to hit it, because who is the actual owner of the Timberwolves right now? I mean, there's Lurie and Aaron Rodriguez, A-Rod. They're supposedly buying the Timberwolves, right? In 2021, they started the payments of a $1.5 billion buyout of the majority for the Timberwolves. Well, they've made the payments here and there. And now Glenn Taylor, owner, is saying, hey, it looks like you guys missed this most recent payment. And based upon that, we're going to maybe pull back here. So this has turned into a bit of a fight, a little bit of a street fight. Now, I think it's all going to get taken care of. I think a lot of folks are going to figure out, what was right, what was wrong. Were they late on the payment, or did they? Everybody's got an opinion. If you talk to one side, everything is fine. You talk to the other side, not everything is fine. They've got some pushing going on back and forth right now. And Glenn Taylor is fighting for a lot of those other folks that are part of the ownership. He's the major owner of this whole thing. I find it really interesting for a team. They don't need any distractions. When you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, they've had one of the best years they've ever had. This goes back to the Kevin Garnett days, but they've already got 51 wins. It's been a great year. They've got a guy in Anthony Edwards that I have said to people in Minnesota for a long time, hey, look, this guy is a superstar. He's 22 years old. He's already been in the NBA multiple years, and he's absolutely one of the most electric players, I think, in the entire NBA. Will he get the MVP? Probably not. Is he deserving? I would say he's very, very close to deserving, because when you look at what he's able to do with his powerful dunks, his powerful blocks, all the things that he brings to the table, he also averages about 26 points a game. He does great with rebounding. He plays defense a lot like Michael Jordan. Some people have compared him to that. I don't think, if I'm Anthony Edwards, I don't know that I want to be compared to Michael Jordan at all. But I will tell you this, John and I used to see Michael Jordan a lot. We knew him a little bit, and he's an amazing player. We watched him in Chicago. Unbelievable what he was able to do. The one thing I would say, the way he floated in the air was like no other player I have ever seen until Anthony Edwards, who now is hitting his head on backboards and everything else. So I think it'll be very, very interesting. This is going to be a little bit of a street fight between the ownership going on with the Timberwolves. But the players don't care, because let's be honest, if you're a player, do you really care who the owner is? As long as you're getting your check, as long as everything is going right, you're probably still pretty willing to have your focus be on the basketball side of it. Let them figure out the ownership side of it. So I'm not worried about it from that perspective, but it sure is interesting to see some big money guys out there trying to go at one another. And it's going to be an interesting fight that might last a little while. So it'll be interesting to see how they all get this thing together. March Madness. We talk about March Madness all the time with basketball, and this year it lived up to the name probably as much as any year, because NC State is a number 11 seed. What have they done so far? Well, they beat Texas Tech. They beat Oakland, who had unbelievable shooters on that team and a legendary three-point shooter on that team. They beat number 2 Marquette. And then this weekend, they took out number 4 Duke. And so it's been an unbelievable run. They're a 11 seed, as I said. This goes back, now that they're at the Final Four, this is going back to the Jimmy V days. I mean, this is an unbelievable run that they've had. And it's really, really cool. I would also say this. We talk about Cinderella teams all the time. Well, Cinderella right now for NC State is a gentleman by the name of DJ Burns Jr. I would highly recommend you go onto YouTube or anywhere and try to find any of the highlights, because this big man, 6'9", 275, maybe 295-pound guy who's out there playing at a high level and shooting from everywhere on the court. He had an unbelievable night against Duke, the Blue Bloods. He was 13 of 19 shooting. He had 29 points. I would say that he had a very Cinderella-type weekend. He might not look like Cinderella, and he does not, but this guy had an unbelievable delivery when it counted most. And now they're on to the next and last levels of the Final Four. So this should be really exciting. I think it's always exciting. There's always one team out there that everybody is shocked by. I would say NC State is that team, because being number 11 and going up against teams like number 2 Marquette, who a lot of folks had going pretty far, if not the Final Four, very, very close. Well, they were very, very close, but that game ended up not even being all that close with NC State. So a lot of excitement. The Final Four is here. We've got a lot of basketball today. We'll give it a little bit of football again tomorrow. But folks, have a great one. We appreciate you watching the Rebels Edge. John is traveling to parts unknown. Actually, they are known, Miami. But we're looking forward to this 10X conference. It should be a lot of fun. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Rebels Edge.